Okay, welcome back to another one of our pre-recorded Q&A sessions. This time it's for Jose, the Queer Lion winner at the Venice Film Festival in 2018. Finally makes an appearance in Cyprus at the Queer Wave Festival. I'd like to thank the producer, F Roberson, director, Cheng, and main actor, Enrique Salanic, for making it here today. All of us are in different time zones, and yeah. So hi, a very warm welcome from us at Queer Wave, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Diego.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna start off with our, I don't know, like, I think a very straightforward question, which is, Cheng, what was your reason for wanting to tell this story? It's set in Guatemala, but it's a very universal one at the same time. Could you tell us more about how it came into being?
Yes, this project started in 2016. That at that time, Drew and I, we live in USA, and they have a USA election. It was a big year, and we see the changing of the country, and also we see dividing of people, and we decide to resist by making a love story in Latin America. So we traveled in 20 largest Latin American cities and to collect data, research, and interviews. Based on hundreds of interviews with the young guys in Latin American cities, we decided to devote this film to a gay community, a love story in gay community, mainly because we had a lot of story about the loss of first love and how you grew up as a young man in Latin America. So we based on a lot of interviews, we collect all the data. We set the location in Guatemala. Also due to the long time overlook of Central American by international society, and how difficult people living their life is, not just gay people, but also has a lot of high poverty and inequality in these countries. Those are general all the aspects we were thinking when we decided to make the movie in Guatemala.
So how did the team come about? When did the decision come to work with Enrique? How did you get your producer on board? Where did the funding come for a project like this?
Well, producer George, we have been collaborating together for a long time, and our first movie, Joshua Tree, which is critique of American culture, was premiered in Cyprus Film Festival back in 2014. And we basically, the funding, both George and I, we are scientists, so we are not like a film people. We don't know anybody. So we decided to really just, so we basically left the USA in 2016. We sold our apartment and we collect some money and we made some money on it. So we use that profit and to make this movie. And for the team, the rest of the team, they're all Guatemala people, super talented. Enrique Salanic and Manolo Herrera, the top two lead actors. What's incredible, encouraging, inspiring those young people in Latin America. And we were actually quite discouraged by the local filmmakers. They told us, don't make this gay movie in Guatemala, go to Mexico City or somewhere else, because it's going to be difficult to find an actor who will kiss another man. But actually it's not true. People there encouraging, inspiring, and really actually motivated us to continue going until even now, 4 years later.
Lovely. Enrique, what was your experience with it? I think, you play a role that is not your average role by Latin American standards. It's a gay film. It's about, same-sex relations between two men. Well, male-male relations. There's more than one explored, but we'll get to that later. What was it like? What was the reaction like in Guatemala?
Well, the reaction in Guatemala has been, it has only had one premiere in one, it was a festival. It was at the end of last year, I think. I don't remember very well. But I guess because the community that organized the festival was like the LGBTQ plus community. So people who were going to watch this movie, they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
So I could not really say if the movie is going to be well accepted nationwide, because we haven't shown it to the public in general. Although in social networks, we kind of have had a glimpse of how homophobic Guatemala is, how conservative it is. And I think it doesn't push me back or makes me regret of what I did. I think it actually creates quite the opposite, that I'm glad that I did it, because I see how necessary it is for young guys to be themselves, exactly, to let them be free and not worry about who they are. And my experience, I think, at the beginning, it was kind of unbelievable, for example, to realize that I was going to do a lead role. And as the film progressed, I think I was more certain of what was happening, and I was really looking at the reality of Guatemala. Although I told George and Lee about this, that at the beginning I was kind of skeptical about this project, because two strangers coming to a very conservative country and doing this kind of movie. And what called my attention was their energy and enthusiasm about doing this movie, and was very contagious. And I said, okay, let's do this. And I think the whole team, the crew, was very well-rounded in this topic and very open-minded, which I think was important for me to develop this character throughout the movie.
That's amazing. George, any comments on that? Anything to add?
Well, I would certainly echo that the all Guatemalan cast and crew, really brought this to life. And after being warned, that it's so conservative and people so homophobic, and being warned by industry people, no one will do this film. We didn't find that to be true. Everybody wanted to be in the film. If they could be on screen, more than 600 people came to castings.
Wow.
It was very difficult for competition for Enrique, although his casting was very, very strong, and his first casting. And that when he did that first casting, he had no reel for us to watch.
Yeah.
He had never been in a feature role before, and so it really was all about the in-person casting, and we needed to find someone who could handle the role, but director Cheng was very, very confident that this film would go around the world for years, which it is already, and he needed to have, we really needed to have someone, a collaborator, who could go forward to handle what we're doing today also, not just the on-screen. And so it was a very complicated casting, but again, Enrique was very strong in his initial casting.
Could you just clarify, Enrique, do you have an acting background, or did you come in it from like a non-actor background?
I don't know. For me, it's kind of difficult to stay in this world that we live in. You know, you have to have a paper that says that you are an actor to be considered an actor. But I have had some experience in Canada. I had the chance to receive a scholarship, and I studied theater in the international baccalaureate program.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at college in the US, and I had the opportunity to be in club theaters and do some performances, and always being active on that sense. And my first film was a Central American film called Days of Light, which was my first experience in the film industry, which I think gave me a lot of confidence despite the uncertainty and the rejection one gets once one is in this world. And I think I think my optimism always has helped me to follow my dream. This has been a dream, but of doing acting either in theater or in film. I think I love acting itself. Yet, living in Guatemala, you might be aware that in Central America, mostly we don't kind of give so much importance to the arts, and it's kind of difficult to develop yourself in this world.
Mm-hmm.
But I rather do something that I like, even if it's difficult, than something that can give me a lot of money but live in a mediocre way. And I think we only live once, and I'm still young, but not so young. So and I know that I want to do this, and I think this experience with Jose put my feet down to earth and say, okay, this is difficult, but let's do this. And of course, this has helped me to increase my acting skills. And there is so much work to do. I think there is always work to do in one's profession. One never stops learning. And I think what I really love about filmmaking is that you can see that it is really teamwork on the making. And I think Lee was very pushing, us, like the whole crew, to be in our best, do our best job. And George always encouraging us that this message needs to get across the world. At the moment, I knew how important the importance of the work we were doing, but I couldn't really imagine how impactful this movie was going to be, after winning the Queer Lion in 2018. And it has been, 2 years, almost since, I think, 18, 19, 20 years,
Yeah.
almost 2 years since that time. I am glad and happy that this message is getting across, because sometimes in my social networks, I get messages from people from the Philippines. Sometimes I got one from China, from Africa, from my friends that are in South America and Europe. Tell me, Enrique, thank you so much for doing this film. You giving us courage, and I can relate to your life. And I think those are the moments when you realize how important is my job or the job that George and Lee does to spread this kind of message of hope. Because even though Jose lives in a very conservative culture, the fact that someone is stepping up and saying, here we are alive, we are present, we have been present since the beginning of times. It's just that you have not noticed. And I think that when people see that, it's like they write me these long messages, and I am like, I'm really surprised about how they felt. I'm very moved, really. It's very, it gives me a lot of courage to keep doing what I do.
You've touched on a
Because
lot of interesting and a lot of beautiful topics. Sorry, go on.
it's okay. No, it's, I think I finished. I'm getting too inspired right now to talk.
No,
But I think in summary, I think it's all those feelings that I have, and I think I am glad that it's getting across, and it's living on.
yeah. You've touched on a lot of interesting topics, which I want to come back to. One of them is, you said, we've been here since the beginning of time. And I think in Jose, there's this amazing moment towards the end when Jose visits the Mayan ruins. And that's a really special moment, I think, in the film, because this comes after all the heartache, the disappointment, the realization that he's trapped within like this society, and he's seeking for another truth, or maybe that's just the way I interpreted it, but he seems to be looking for a bigger truth, like something that was there before time, you know, before Christianity, before religion, you know. Lee, do you want to tell us more about that, and you know, how did that make it into the script?
Yes, the script actually combined a lot of people's interviews, stories. You know, even including my story, including George's stories in it. And so I was very intense writing it when I started in Sao Paulo. That's about 2017 March. I think that was start date of writing. And that time I have interviewed a lot of gay community in Sao Paulo. And we lived in this kind of super small apartment with two super small bedrooms on the 24th floor in the big metropolitan skyscrapers. Was very intense. And it got really tough when we were in Guatemala in May until July. Those two months, we interviewed a lot of people in Guatemala, and also we have some personal problems as well. So it's kind of a inner struggle. What, you know, with the script is the inner struggle of us, and also the struggle of the script writing at the same time. And also hear a lot of stories about the inequality, the difficulty of people they live in, and you just feel like, well, you know, we just have to do something for them in a way that in a very universal way to let everybody say it. And even now when I'm writing my current script, I was thinking, in this world, there's always people who are suppressed, and those people are majority. And those people tend to be kind, nice, modest people. And for in all the human history, always these people are suppressed, and why? And why always this silent majority being suppressed, being maltreated?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, if there's one thing can get more equal or get more fair, is these people can love, and these people can find their love, and their love life is a lot better than those hateful, revengeful political leaders. Their love life is so much better than those big corporations, the leaders that are only great for money. So I think that's somehow you can get even about, you know, that I was always very influenced by this Louis Charles Kung Fu novel. He's from Hong Kong. I always remember this line. These a couple had a daughter, and they were killed by some enemies, and the husband was killed, and the wife decided to commit suicide. So he sent her daughter to somewhere, some family, and just tell her that, you know, my daughter, no matter how much money you have or how much suffer you have, but remember, you know, if you can have some days of love life that can never forget, it's better than anybody else already. So make that happen. So I hope Jose touches other people's heart by maybe reminding some people's memory, or maybe will encourage the young people to experience passion and love.
Thank you. And how do you think the Queer Lion is like the most important award given to an LGBT film at the Venice Film Festival, one of the top in the world? How do you think that has helped the film travel?
Yeah, for sure, it helps a lot. And the Venice Film Festival is always is my top favorite film festival. In the very start of the organizing the crew, and I was always telling people, we're gonna send this movie to Venice. We're gonna send this movie to Venice. And when I talked to my editor, Lance Clary, and he has a movie in Cannes that year. I said, you know, this movie is gonna be in Venice this year. So you know, it's kind of all the intuition came true. So yeah, people in Venice was super care about the film language, and we had a long clap after the industrial screening, you know, with all the film critics, and that's very unusual. And Jose has traveled more than 100 film festivals now, and I have been to maybe 20 or 30 of them, and Venice is always gonna be my favorite.
I can understand why. That's wonderful. So, I mean, coming to a more controversial topic, perhaps, is Enrique. I know that at your NYC premiere in New York of Jose, you weren't allowed to travel to America for it. Could you tell us how that happened? How did that all go down?
Of course. I'm glad you asked me that question. I think I would like to begin by saying that I have got this question many times, but I think only time has given me depth into what has happened. Because at the beginning, maybe I was shocked and, of course, frustrated due to the denial, the visa denial. But now, living in the situation that the whole world is living due to the pandemic, it's giving me another perspective. And I see that this visa denial at the beginning was very, like, I really appreciate the effort of George and Lee and the whole team that was behind my visa process, because I felt their support even though we were physically miles apart. They were constantly asking me how I was doing, how is the visa process doing, am I doing the paperwork, etc. And I was replying to them as soon as I could. When the time came the first time, they told me that I was a flight risk. I couldn't go, even though, as you know, I have studied college in the US and I've gone to Canada, and I came back to Guatemala to give back to my country. And then we thought, okay, let's give it another try. And this time was different because we had one congressman sending a letter to the US Embassy here in Guatemala. And his name was Theo Liu, if I'm not mistaken. He sent that letter the day I had my interview at the US Embassy in Guatemala City. But they told me that I was a liar because they couldn't find any letter. And they told me in a very demeaning, I think, they were belittling me, because I think they told me, who would send a letter for a random guy like you, especially a congressman? And I had the whole support, and my paper was there. At the time was confusing, but given the fact that Trump is on the administration and policies have changed, it's hard to accept. I think it's hard to accept, but it makes sense in this. It makes sense the fact that the José is a movie that shows the reality of the world, not only of Guatemala. And also, we've been living in a world where the rules were established by white colonizers, and indigenous people were discriminated against. And as indigenous person, I was like, you can not allow my entrance, but at the end, the good side of it was that the press made a lot of news out of this denial.
Yeah.
And I think it gave a lot of more voice to the movie, which in that sense I appreciate. Doing advertisements in the US is very expensive, and I think the newspapers did that for us for free, but of course it had a cost. And as of this moment, I feel okay. What if I just went to the US and just got the virus and came back to Guatemala and make my family sick, because the US really hasn't done anything in terms of restrictions. I'm not there, but you hear the news constantly here in Guatemala that the US hasn't done this, that many people get infected, that many people are dying in such and such state. And it's supposedly to be one of the first world countries. And it's just very ironic. And I'm glad the technology is also giving us a chance to connect us and for people to watch José. And I know, although it was made for the big screen, I think the message still gets through.
I will agree with that. I think one of the things we were thinking as a festival was, do we want to start out with an online edition? What's the point? It's supposed to be about community being together. But I think having a festival and giving this project like a momentum is more important than, how we do it, if it's physical or online, because at the moment there isn't a platform for these films, LGBT films in Cyprus. And yeah, we're really glad to have José as part of the selection, really. And I just wanted to come back to the film because I feel like we haven't talked about that, a lot in terms of, the story being told. It feels so authentic, like the streets, the working class family we're following throughout, the places where they work, the nature surrounding them, you know, the words they use to express themselves. This is a really religious country, and you can tell throughout the film. I just, you know, I wondered what was it that stood out for you the most during the production process? Like, what was the most special moment for you to shoot?
Well, first
You
of all, I
asking
would
me
say,
or George?
oh, sorry. I will say something Enrique can add.
No,
I
it's
would
okay.
say that the whole process was combination of teamwork. But in the very beginning, I based on my view of thousands of films, I absolutely want my film, the film language, if you want to say that, is absolutely need to be authentic, organic, natural.
Yep.
I can't stand with a realistic story being fake, cheesy, and overreacted. So that's the principle, and I have been really telling the actors, my cast and crew, cinematographer Paulo, who is very talented, and that's what I wanted, and so it was end up very well on those. And nowadays, when you see authentic or organic, those words not even means what it means in the very beginning, but all in all, I want a very natural film that shows a lot of respect to the characters, that you just want the audience to view the film from top to beginning to feel their emotions.
And you know, I really like, I don't know if like is the right word, but I really appreciate, you know, how realistic some depictions are, about, I don't know, like essentially the life of a gay man in a conservative country. Let's just call it that. But, you know, it's very much a case of, it's a thing that you do on dating apps. You know, you don't meet people on the bus like heterosexual couples can, you know. You see this couple at the very end of the film on the bus, and they're just casually meeting each other. You know, it's in the moment, it's spontaneous, it's organic. But that's not the case with Jose and the men in his life. You know, they're forced to hide it, go away in rooms, you know, like resent themselves. They have to choose between, I don't know, a devotion to their family or, you know, what their heart wants. And I think that's like really crushing, and it's one of the very powerful threads throughout the film, I think. And also the fact that we see these other this other heterosexual couple that has the privilege and has the freedom of making a choice to be together, and they just waste it. You know, they don't act on it. And I think it's a beautiful contrast that you made in the film in that way.
Well, there seems kind of two categories of meeting people for gay community. In a way, it's kind of two generations of meeting people, and there's some cruising place or gay bars and gay saunas. And we did show a few cruising place in the early beginning of the movie. But you know, it's dying out, and nowadays the people do meet people majority online, through phone apps. With this pandemic going on, I think the cruising is going to be even less than before. There are some good things about those kind of ways of meeting people. It's more, I hate that word. It's kind of more organic in a way. You know, you know somebody's mannerism right away, you know who, if you like it or not right away. Um, and um, you know, for these poor people living in the very conservative society, it's super difficult. And as mentioned many times about Guatemala, it's quite conservative in the gay rights. We really wish that people, the poor people, the gay people, the women, live a better life there, can have a better life there. And with this pandemic, who a lot of people see, oh, pandemic is not discriminating. Everybody catch the pandemic will get a similar result. That's not true.
No.
You know, the lower class people have to work, keep working.
Yeah.
The high class people can buy a house in the suburb. So and they are fine. They just everything, food or grocery can be mailed in. So I would see, you know, in the future, in the near future, the poor people's life is going to be even more difficult. And so what can you do about, you know, what can you do about, you know, again, as I said earlier, love life, you can always find a creative way to show your love to people around you. And that's already better than most people. So keep that in mind. That's your spirit. That's you gonna get more fair with the world.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I just wanted to come back to the visual language. I think there are some very interesting things that we see. And I can't help but, you know, want to ask you more about it. One thing is, you know, there are all these cables hanging on top of the city. And it always seems like, you know, Jose is longing to escape, but he confesses that he doesn't necessarily know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like it's a jail, it's a prison, you know, an earthly sort of cage for everyone there. And you see an airplane flying above them, and someone else is leaving, and someone else is, I don't know, acting on their dreams, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just found that very poetic
you
of
know,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's exactly one of the point we really try to make, that you know the rich people can have a private jet going to a tourist place in Guatemala or in Mexico, or have double USA passport to go to US anytime they want. And but for the poor people, I mean, they couldn't, their whole salary for a whole month cannot even afford to get application for a passport. I mean, how extreme can that be? I mean, I know that's, you know, maybe 100 years ago, it's even worse, but still, to me, it's very shocking how much little money people are working all day to make in Guatemala. And this year I have traveled before the pandemic, luckily I have been traveling earlier this year in Indonesia and South Africa. And boy, you know, in Indonesia, things even worse. You know, people running around making I don't know, $2 per day. It's crazy. I mean, how can people you know, be so silent about it? And those people who are silent but majority, and they are majority but silent. How can they do that? You know, how come that there's no resistance? You know, we need to resist, to fight, to get a better world and better more fairness. You know, we can never reach 100% fairness, but just a little more year by year. So we will get there someday.
I like that optimism. And are there any, I don't know, future projects in development for any of you? Do you think you'll work together again one day?
Well, I will say first, and then you guys can add. I'm writing a script now, and because of a pandemic, that we actually end up this kind of a 4-year-long trial on the film and the research and this kind of a routine and mannerism of filmmaking that we think is good for us and is fit as well. Now I am writing a script, and hopefully the script can be universal enough that I can shoot in any country in the world. So we hope someday, probably have to be next year, and when the virus is much less severe, we could shoot this film somewhere, and could be Guatemala, could be somewhere else, can be anywhere. And Enrique, for sure, you know, I will be working with George all the time, but Enrique for sure would like to join the team if that's a Spanish film. So we are looking forward to contribute more to the world.
Fantastic. Thank you
Yes,
so
I
much.
would love to work with Lee and George again. I think their enthusiasm and energy. I think we all three have science background, or at least this research intuition, and I think it's very interesting how our cultures match in some ways. You know, the Asian culture and the Latin American culture. It's very interesting how we one another. And of course, I would be delighted to work with Lee and George again. With all this that is going on with the pandemic, I think kind of uncertain. You know, I'm trying to the best I can do to look for projects and to do research, and I cannot be waiting for all of this to stop, you know, to be better, and just always hoping for the best.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a good point to wrap it all up. I'd like to thank you all again for joining us today for the Queer Wave Q&A on José. It's been a pleasure having you, and hopefully we'll be meeting again under different circumstances. I wish you all the best with your future projects.
Thank you, and keep up good work with the great work you are doing, and stay safe and take care, and we hope people will like José in Cyprus.
Thank you so much, everyone.